Problem-based learning activities are a great way to infuse STEM into the math classroom. STEM refers to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM is an approach to learning, not a subject in school. Although each of these letters stands for a subject, the combination of these letters represents the approach to a curriculum that provide experiences. Our job as educators is to provide learning experiences and opportunities that engage and motivate learners. Inquiry-based learning meets these criteria. So the purpose of using the STEM is to prepare students for higher education and the workplace. And to do that, you want to instill the 4 C's in your classroom by providing opportunities for collaboration, to creatively problem solve, to use critical thinking skills, and to effectively communicate. As you can see, these are important components of the 21st century learner. The engineering design process is also used within the classroom when preparing problem-based learning activities. It is important to get students to learn this process because this is similar to how companies also develop new products. I also think it's great because it parallels the concept of the growth mindset and the idea that we need to improve, test, improve, and then also to share. And the share can also be considered like the idea of taking a test. And we also have to share results and also to reflect on those results as well. And so again, these two things mirror each other and work very well in concert. When working together and trying to instill the concept of collaboration, we developed team charters. Students made a commitment to their team through an exercise that developed a team charter. Groups were chosen at random to simulate a workplace environment. Students were expected to create a name, a logo, and a list of expectations that all of the members must abide by and be kept accountable for. Here is an example of one of the team charters, where you see that they named themselves the Incredibles, and they came up with some rules in order to meet the expectations. I found that these were helpful in the case that students came up with a conflict, and that we went back to the charter and were able to talk to each other about what we'd agreed upon at the beginning of the quarter. One of the examples that we were the problem-based learning activities that we worked on were bucket towers. This was one of the first things that I introduced to my classes, and the kids had a ball doing it. The next one was the basketball towers, and basketball towers were a little bit more difficult. They had to take the paper, just newspaper and a little bit of tape, and build towers. One of my groups actually developed a tower that held 2 basketballs. It was quite impressive. They also had to go back and improve. So some of the examples that you're seeing here were not the first time that they created it. The last example that I'd like to show you has to do with 3-dimensional containers. In 8th grade, students are expected to learn about the surface area and the volume of 3-dimensional containers. So there were choice activities. They had to work on the cubed can, which was designing a can for a food distributor. And this can had to be cubed, not cylinder. But the students had to also talk about why they would not recommend a cubed can to these food distributors and what were the reasoning for that. So they also had to come up with sports games. They had to measure and record actual sports balls, and then they had to design a game based on some sort of spherical object that they came up with and the properties that would be good for this type of game. And lastly, they had to come up with a popcorn container. They used 8.5 by 11 paper and created popcorn containers, and then had to describe the amount of popcorn that would be in it, and also the surface area of the container, which would be the cost of the actual container. All in all, these were very beneficial, and the students' feedback that I got was that they really enjoyed working on these projects and would like to do many, many more of these types of projects. So in the end, don't be afraid to try to do a problem-based learning project. It does take a tiny bit more work, but it is well worth it, and the students will definitely benefit.